Good afternoon, all of you. I welcome you to BYJU'S Exam Prep and I welcome you to this discussion of Slot 2 CAT 2019. Now, we've already had part 1 of this session last week. I think, yes, at this very time last week, we had a discussion of part 1. So, today is a part 2 discussion of this VARC section of CAT 2019 Slot 2. We'll be attempting 2 RC passages and after that, some VA questions. Okay. Hi, Shruti. Good afternoon, Roosters. Hello, Anjali. Hi, Guru. Welcome to the session. Hi, good afternoon, Ash. Okay, so let me tell you in advance, the 2 passages that we are going to deal with today are relatively more complex as compared to the passages that we did last week. So last week we saw 3 passages and they were not very abstract. They talked about cities, right? Bureaucrats being disgorged from cities. Then there was one about how Google is actually mapping, 3D mapping all the heritage sites. So they were very topical in nature. Today we have 2 of them. Now, one of them is indeed topical. Uh, Even the other one is, but it gives a slightly philosophical perspective on a topical issue. Okay, so we are going to see 2 passages of this sort today. Hi, good afternoon, Thought World. Guru, Rahul, good afternoon, Bhagyashree. Okay, so let's begin our discussion. Again, I want you to read with a sense of urgency. I'm not saying that, read at a super fast pace, no, but read with a sense of urgency because in the exam also you won't have the luxury to read a passage very leisurely, right? So I'll read along with you, and once I'm done reading, I'll assume that you also have done reading, okay? I'll ask you, I'm just saying it like that. So I'll ask you if you're done, and then I'll move to the next slide. Okay, so let's read together with concentration without any distractions. Okay, let's begin with our first RC for the day. Start reading. Yes. All right, can I go to the next slide? So I am going to the next slide now. All right, done with the second slide. Going to the now I'm going to the third one. Okay, so by now all of us should have finished reading the passage. And identity politics, identity linguistics. I see some of these words in the last paragraph. This passage definitely talks about language and it talks about a man, a white man who knows both Arabic and Egyptian language, and who knows both Arabic and Mandarin, and is observing these Chinese people who are selling lingerie in Egypt. Okay, so is interacting with them, is observing them, and has written a piece on them. That's what this passage is about. Okay, so let's come to the 16th question. Which of the following can be inferred from the author's claim? Which way is Oriental? Where does the author make this claim? Retention is important. This claim has been made in the second last paragraph, right? So the author says, what exactly is the dynamic when a man from Missouri observes a Zhejiang native selling lingerie to an Upper Egyptian woman? If all of us now stand beside the same river, speaking in ways we all understand, who is looking east and who is looking west? Which way is Oriental? Right? So, what does the author mean by this claim? Yes. Let's see who will tell me. Just eliminate and you will get it. Two options can be very easily eliminated. Okay, so let me eliminate those two easy options for you. See this. Here we are saying that globalization has mitigated cultural hierarchies and barriers. Okay, just give me a second. So, fine, we'll look at this. This is goodwill alone mitigates cultural hierarchies and barriers alone. Extreme word. Is this passage focused on goodwill between people of various cultures? Not really, right? It's focused on language. So three is eliminated. Fourth says Orientalism is a discourse. Discourse is a topic of discussion, basically. Okay, of the past, from colonial times, rarely visible today. This has not been discussed, that Orientalism is a discourse of the colonial times. This is alien to my Paris passage, isn't it? So not discussed, eliminated. Between 1 and 2, of course, which one is more appropriate? Yes, globalization, is that the topic of discussion here, or is it about learning another language? The entire passage is about learning another language, right? Basically, the author also has learned Arabic, also Mandarin, also. These Chinese people also have picked up Arabic, okay, while selling lingerie. So, one is the answer here. Learning another language can mitigate cultural hierarchies and barriers. The author is saying that, see, if these Chinese people and these Egyptian people, right, and we stand beside the same river and we speak in ways that we all can understand. Right, we find a common language, we all understand each other. Then who is looking east and who is looking west? Whom will you call somebody who belongs to the east and whom will you say is somebody who belongs to the west? You'll not be able to identify that. Oriental and Occidental, these are two terms that are used to refer to the east and the west. In case you don't know this, okay, so Occidental is the west, the western world. Oriental is the east, belonging to the east. So the author is saying that you can't have these distinctions when all of us understand the same language and can communicate with each other. So one is the answer here. Very good, Guru and Thought World, absolutely correct. And this one could be done through elimination. Now 17th question, again easy. This one is easy, even easier than 16th. Read it and tell me what should be the answer. Yes. Hi Samiksha. Let's see what you say here. What is going on? We are discussing an RC passage, okay? And I am currently asking you what is the answer for question 17, right? There is a French ethnographer. He decides to study the culture of a Nigerian tribe. So this tribe has a different ethnicity from that of the ethnographer, right? which of the following is most likely to be the view of the author of the passage? So what will the author of the passage say? Would he or she discourage? Would he, it's a man who's written this, would he discourage the ethnographer? No, he would not discourage the ethnographer, right? He would rather encourage the ethnographer. You know, we are talking about bridging those cultural barriers. How? Through language, right? So the author would encourage the ethnographer, but how? Okay, so but ask him or her to first learn the language of the Nigerian tribe, or but ask him or her to be mindful of his or her racial and gender identity in the process. See, two sounds like a tempting option. Yes, but the author in the passage is asking us to go beyond these racial and gender identities. The author is saying that my identity as a white man is less important than the fact that I have also gone through the struggle of learning two foreign languages, right? So, this is not the answer. Rather, one is the answer. Four can also be eliminated because instead of hiring a translator, the author would ask this person to learn the language himself or herself. Okay, that you learn the language yourself, because when you speak their language, the barriers, the hierarchies will be automatically bridged. Okay, so one is the answer here. All right. Hope this is clear to everybody. Those who didn't answer, I think many of you were at a loss in this question. Question 80. The author's critiques would argue that. So, what would the author's critiques argue? They are criticizing the author. They are against what the author is saying. So, what would they say? Yes. Giving you 1 minute to answer this, right? Because that's the most that you'll get in the exam also. The author's critiques would argue that. A very easy question. All right, what has happened? Uh, I'll show it to you through elimination. It seems like you're not solving the RC passage. Orientalism cannot be practiced by Egyptians. So this does not make sense at all, right? Orientalism means of the East, okay? So cannot be practiced by Egyptians. So how does that affect the author's argument? The author's argument is that if you learn someone else's language, that at least partially that bridges the barriers between you and them. That's the author's argument. So the critiques would definitely go for 2. Language is insufficient to bridge cultural barriers because it is attacking the author's main argument like anything. Author का argument है language can bridge. You are saying language is insufficient. So yes, this is the best argument to make to criticize the author, right? This, if the critics say this, they would actually be supporting the author's argument. Okay, they would support the author's argument that if you are empathetic towards someone that actually can uh, overcome your identity, let's say. Okay, so in fact, we are talking about identity politics here, no discussion of language. So this is not very relevant also, right? So very clear cut answer here, 2. All right. Okay, so Guru, to increase your speed, see initially when you practice now, when you go for these questions initially, if that is the stage that you are in currently, then focus on accuracy. Okay, then gradually bring in a time constraint. If on day one itself you are very strict with yourself that I have to solve this RC passage in, let's say, 7.5 minutes, if you decide that for a 5-question passage, then it might be a little difficult because you've just started. The passage can be complex, and building comprehension takes time. So initially focus on accuracy, then gradually, let's say after 20-21 days, you can start introducing the barrier of time. So let's say initially you decide, okay, let me solve this in 10 minutes. Let me try to solve this passage in 10 minutes. Then gradually reduce time from there, right? So it does not happen in one day. Initially things take time. Okay. All right. So question 19. According to the passage, which of the following is not responsible for language's ability to change us? This is important. Not responsible. So tell me what options can be very easily eliminated here. Which options have been stated as responsible for language's ability to change us? Welcome, Guru. Hello, Saurabh. So the twists, okay, let's read from one straight away. The ups and downs involved in the course of learning a language. The author is making this argument in the passage that learning a language is a transformative process. Yes, the author has said this, that learning a language can be transformative. Even in the last paragraph the author says this, that you can always learn another language and change who you are. So it's actually a transformative thing. Now, first looks like it can be the answer, but if you look here, that they have wrestled with, yes, an individual who wrestles with a difficult language can learn to be more sympathetic to outsiders and open to different experiences of the world. So wrestling with a difficult language, that means learning a language can have its ups and downs. It can be a challenging job, right? When you wrestle with something, you're grappling with it, you find it difficult, challenging. So yes, the ups and downs can also play a part in your in language's ability to change you, because you become more sympathetic towards outsiders. So this is not the answer actually. Let's see what else has been said. 4. Very good thought word. 4 is the answer here. Let's see why. So 2 says language's intrinsic connection to our notions of self and identity. This is also something that the author says, that language is connected to who we are. So see this, after all, you can always learn another language and change who you are. That means language is related to our self, our identity, right? The author does talk about something called identity linguistics. Yes. So the words that run throughout your mind are as fundamental to your selfhood as is your ethnicity or your gender. So language is closely connected to who we are and our notion of self and identity, and that actually, and once we learn a new language, we can actually change that. Third, language's ability to mediate the impact of identity markers one is born with. Yes, even this is given, because the author says, no, see, my identity is as a white man, it's less important than the fact that I can communicate in these languages, in their languages, was far less important than my ability to communicate. That means it his ability to communicate compensated for the fact that he was a white male. Okay, so it was actually, just a second, let me explain this sentence to you. Language's ability to mediate the impact. Mediate the impact means to lessen the impact of identity markers. Markers, basically checkposts. Markers, something that marks, puts a mark that, okay, this is, so for instance, if let's say someone is a male, someone is a female, that's a marker, right? A label. So it mediates the impact, it lessens the impact of identity markers that one is born with, right? So even this is mentioned by the author by giving his own example. This has not been mentioned anywhere in the passage. This is alien to the passage, and that's why this is the answer, right? Hope this makes sense. Yes. Okay. Exam, yes, absolutely, Samiksha. This is a 4-question passage, and in the exam also we expect 500 to 550 word passages. We do expect, right? So you can get such a passage. Okay. So this was it. Yes, this was it. This was a short passage. See, I mean, it was followed by just 4 questions. Uh, 16 was about which way is oriental. It basically was a specific question based on a specific part. But actually, if you read the entire passage and realize the focus is on language, you can again eliminate based on the entire passage's sense and find this answer. Right? 17th again, based on the author's stance in the entire passage, can be attempted easily. 18th, if you understand what is the author's main argument, you will be able to attempt it. And 19th, finally, this is based on specific sections, so you should have read the passage, those sections at least carefully to answer this, right? Okay, so far I hope things are clear to you. And coming to, just a second, okay, so here's a link for the All India Open Mock. right? All India Open Mock for CAT 2022. Since all of you are attending the session right now, of course you're preparing for CAT 2022. Do take this mock because it will give you an idea of where you stand compared to your peers, right? It's an all India mock, so people from all over India are going to be taking it, right? Secondly, it will help you realize what your strengths and what are your weaknesses currently, because you have time to improve, right? And accordingly, you'll be able to evolve a strategy. So do take this mock, right? It's live till tomorrow, till 21st August. Okay. So 1 to 15, we have already done, Pankaj. We did them in the last session, right? So you can watch the last week's session for that. Okay. All right. Now coming to our 5 questions, our 5 question passage. Read this carefully, okay? And I'll again read along with you and turn the slide only once I am done reading, not before that. So I'll show you. This is just a 2 slide passage, not a very long one. Let's start reading, right? 2021 and 20. We have done 20. Which one have we done? 2018 I have done. I'll do 2020 after this then. Yes, if I did 2018 earlier, then I'll do 2020 after this. Okay? Yeah. Read this. Start reading, all of you. Done. We are talking about the British colonial policy in slide 1, right? And we are saying that when they entered India, they were basically focused. They were basically focused on military. They entered through military power, of course. They were focused more on diplomacy, but then they didn't settle. They didn't want to settle for just that. They wanted to change India. Okay, they wanted to basically uh, make an ideological change also, right? So that's what they wanted to do. They wanted to introduce modernity into the Indian society, right? So that's what the first slide talks about. Now let's read the second slide. This is a complex RC, I agree with you. Okay. And the language is also difficult, even though the topic is familiar to us. So, in such RC passages, what should we do? Right? First is, when you prioritize your RC passages, this would be the last passage that you attempt. Because just on reading the first couple of lines, we realize that it's a complex RC. The language is difficult. Yes. So definitely this would not be the first RC that I attempt. Secondly, when I read it, my focus will be on grasping the gist. So I may not understand words like, let's say, enlightenment, rationalism, but I get to know that, okay, Britishers were trying to do something deeper than just occupying India militarily. They wanted to introduce modernity into India. But there was resistance from the Indian side, of course, right? Then, so this is what I got from the first slide. If I'm looking at it very cursory level, right? Then we are saying that modernity therefore had an external character, right? Modernity was introduced by the Britishers into the Indian society. Then the author is analyzing this, that there were two problems that were introduced when we talk about this introduction of modernity, right? So the author analyzes that and says that because it was introduced externally, you can't use the analogy of transition process. You can't use the logic of transition process. See, when something is introduced on its own, when something rises in a culture, in a society on its own, that's when it undergoes transitions, right? Changes. But here you are just imposing it from outside. So you can't apply that logic of transition process to it, right? Secondly, it says that uh, some of the this one, that what was the end result? The end result of the introduction of this modernity was that a very degenerate, a very rudimentary version of capitalism was established. This was actually the development of underdevelopment. So it wasn't good for us. This entire project of modernity of the Britishers, it wasn't good for India as a country. It actually resulted in the development of underdevelopment. So that's what has been broadly discussed here. Again, see, I just discussed some of the main points here with you. Right. So on a reading of this in a time constraint, you are just supposed to get the key ideas, the main points, and then see which all questions are easy to attempt. Just attempt those and probably leave the rest in the first round. Maybe come to them later if you have time left at the end. Right? That's how we attempt such questions, such passages. But because right now we are in the preparation stage, what I would recommend to you is that once you go home, like as in once the session ends, you should read this carefully and search for the meanings of all those terms that you do not understand. So, for instance, enlightenment rationalism. What was it? How is it? How has it been associated with Europe? Let's say, right? Look for that. So whatever terms you don't understand here, look for them, okay, and Google them and get a better understanding, because right now we are in the comprehension stage. We are building comprehension, right? So this will improve your knowledge, and probably then if such a passage comes in the exam, you'll be able to tackle it better. Okay? So let's attempt question 20 now. All of the following statements about British colonialism can be inferred from the first paragraph, except. So basically, it is asking you what cannot be inferred about British colonialism from the first paragraph, right? So it was at least partly an outcome of enlightenment rationalism. Britishers का जो colonialism का उनका जो policy था, it was at least partly an outcome of enlightenment rationalism. Let's see if this can be inferred. I think I have highlighted this here. For whatever their sense of the strangeness of the country and the thinness of colonial presence. So basically, no matter how strange they found our country, and no matter how thin their presence was, how less their presence was, the British colonial state represented the great conquering discourse of Enlightenment rationalism. Okay, so the British colonial state, let's say I do not know what Enlightenment rationalism is, then also I can understand this, that yes, the British colonial state represented this Enlightenment rationalism. That means, yes, it was associated with Enlightenment rationalism. It was probably at least partly an outcome of this Enlightenment rationalism. Okay, and the great conquering discourse of enlightenment, actually these are movements that took place in Europe, okay, in the 19th 18th sorry, not 19th, 18th, 19th century. Yes. So basically enlightenment was when people started questioning things in a very rational manner. Okay, they started questioning everything, religion, government. They started asking for logic behind things, and they accepted only those things that could be scientifically proven. So this age was called the age of enlightenment. So Enlightenment rationalism said that we should be rational in our approach, right? And Britishers thought that their way was the rational way. Okay, so this colonialism was a product of this Enlightenment rationalism, right? Okay, so 4 is what some of you are saying. So 1 can be eliminated because it can be inferred. Let's see if 4 can be inferred or not. They allowed the treatment, British colonialism allowed the treatment of colonies. So India was a colony, the countries that they captured in a way or conquered. They allowed the colonialism allowed the treatment of colonies as experimental sites. Did they treat us as experimental sites where they could conduct their experiments? Yes, they did. See this? Some empirically inclined theorists of that generation considered the colonies a massive laboratory of utilitarian or other theoretical experiments. They actually thought that they could conduct their experiments on their colonies, and if the experiment was successful, it could be implemented in their home countries. Right? So, yes, even this can be inferred. Okay. Between 2 and 3, faced resistance from existing structural forms of Indian modernity. Did India have a modernity? Have we said this, that India also had its own form of modernity and that's why they, resisted British modernity? Does my passage say that? India mein nahi thi modernity. Okay, my passage does not say it anywhere that India had its own modernity and that's why it resisted British modernity. So this becomes alien. This becomes something that's not mentioned in the passage at all. And that's why 2 is the answer here. 3 says was at least partly shaped by the project of European modernity. Yes, yes. Their colonialism was shaped by their ideology of modernity. That's why they wanted to introduce it in India ना. उनको था कि उनका आइडियोलॉजी तो है कि हम तो मॉडर्निटी वाला आइडियोलॉजी रखते हैं, हम वो इंडिया में भी इंट्रोड्यूस कर दें. We should introduce it in India as well. That's what they said. So 2 is the answer here. Okay. Hope this is clear to everybody. Good, Rahul. 2 is the answer. So this is a question that you will be able to attempt only when you understood the RC passage. So I will not call it an easy question. This is a tricky question because it requires the interpretation of various sentences. Okay. All right. So B is the answer. Hope this is clear to everybody. Now coming to 21. All of the following statements, if true, could be seen as supporting the arguments in the passage except. What does this mean? 3 options out of these are supporting what the passage says. 1 is not supporting. You just have to find out that one. Right? So let's see what that one option is. Yes, what do you say? Read the options. Look at second. What do you say? Is it supported? Is it not supported? Because I think we have been discussing it for a while now. Okay, Rahul says 4. Others? This is something that is supporting. So this cannot be the answer, right? It is modernity was imposed upon India by the British. We are also saying that in the passage. So it's supporting. And yes, it led to underdevelopment. That was a consequence of modernity. That's also mentioned in the very last line. Development of underdevelopment can be easily eliminated. 3. Throughout the history of colonial conquest, natives have often been experimented on by the colonizers. Just the sentence that I read about utilitarian and theoretical experiments के लिए उसको laboratories की तरह treat करते थे colonies को. So even this can be easily eliminated. The introduction of capitalism in India was not through the transformation of feudalism as happened in Europe. This is also something that has been stated. See, in any case, historians have forcefully argued that what it was to replace, basically, the Britishers wanted to replace something in the Indian society with their modernity. वो चाहते थे कि जो exist करता है इंडिया में उसको हम replace कर दें with our modernity. So it says that what it sought to replace, what existed in the Indian society was not feudalism. It was not like feudalism. So we are saying this, that what was there in the Indian society was not like feudalism. So the introduction of capitalism in India was not through the transformation of feudalism as happened in Europe. So this part here can be seen as true on the basis of the passage itself, and it is supporting the passage. The passage is also saying that it was not replacing feudalism. In fact, passage तो ये बोल रहा है कि ना capitalism establish करने की कोशिश थी. The effort was not to establish capitalism. Moreover, it was not even replacing feudalism. They wanted to establish something else altogether, right? So even this is something that I can see in the passage. The answer is 4. Good, Rahul. Good, Azra. Very good. The change in British colonial policy was induced, was caused by resistance to modernity in Indian society. No, that did not decide the change. Basically, when the Britishers implemented modernity, after that it faced resistance. So resistance was a consequence, resistance was not a cause. So this is a distorted option. Resistance was a consequence of the policy, not a cause behind the policy. Hope this is clear. So as I said, it's a complicated RC passage, and here you could have been selective in attempting the questions, right? 22. Okay, so a big sentence is given to us, and we've been asked, which of the following best captures the sense of this statement, the meaning of this statement? Okay, so read it. Consequently, the colonial state, basically the Britishers, could not settle simply for eminence, simply for, let's say, being a prominent figure, simply for popularity. Not popularity actually. When you're eminent, you are distinguished, you are recognized easily. So I think you are famous and distinguished in a field. Simply for eminence at the cost of its marginality. So जब Britishers India आए, right, when they came to India, they came through military power, right? However, they were not a major presence culturally. So that is why they wanted to introduce their own ideology in India. They felt that, our ideology of modernity, that is great, that is awesome, and we should introduce it in India as well. So initially, when they hadn't done that, when they were just a military power, they were not satisfied. So why? Because they felt sidelined, they felt marginalized. So they were not satisfied just with being a distinguished figure when they were marginalized in this cultural sense. That's why they began to take initiatives to introduce the logic of modernity into Indian society. Right? So now tell me, which of the following captures the essence? In the options which are directly given in the passage, and there is an option none of the above. What should be the answer then? What is the question? The question stem asks you what cannot be inferred. In that case, none of the above should be the answer. If the question says what cannot be inferred, and because A, B and C, they are there in the passage, so D will be the answer, then none of the above. Right? Okay. So let's have a look at this. First one states the colonial state's eminence was unsettled. तो वो colonial state unsettled थी और या फिर उनकी eminence unsettled थी? Tell me. This sentence's construction itself is flawed. Yes. Their fame was not unsettled. It was not like their fame, their distinguished nature, that was unsettled. No, they were unsettled. Okay. Also, this part, see the latter part, it developed Indian society. No, not at all. It did not develop Indian society. It actually underdeveloped. It actually led to its underdevelopment. So, first is wrong. Second, the colonial enterprise was a costly one. Are we talking about cost? At the cost of something does not mean I'm literally talking about money expenses here. So, right at this stage, I eliminated. Between 3 and 4. The colonial state felt marginalized from Indian society because of its own modernity, because they had their own ideology. Therefore, it sought to address that feeling of being sidelined by bringing its modernity to change Indian society. This is what I've just explained to you. And this is the answer. Okay. Fourth is again very distorted. The cost of their popularity was not settled. What does that mean? Yes. So this is again a very distorted construction. 3 is the answer. Absolutely correct. Rahul, A, Azra, Thought World, all of you are correct. 3 is the answer. Okay. So good that you are actually, making this effort to wade through these difficult questions. Right? It will pay off in the long run. Persistence always pays off. Remember. 23. Which one of the following 5-word sequences best captures the flow of the arguments in the passage? This is a main idea question in a way, because here you have to find out the keywords. What are the keywords that have been discussed in the passage? So now, based on what we have discussed, I have even explained a little bit of the passage to you. Tell me which is the most appropriate answer here. Yes. Let's see what you say. We have discussed modernity so much, isn't it? The entire second slide is devoted to modernity. So, of course, it's a keyword. Yes. So, 3 and 4 can be eliminated easily. Thought World says 2. Absolutely correct. 2 is the answer here. See this. Uh, the passage is about British colonial policy, right? So, that is, of course, a very important part here. First, does not mention it at all. So, whose military power, whose arrogance are we talking about, right? We don't know that. Enlightenment, yes, we are saying that it was at least partially shaped by Enlightenment rationalism. It tried to introduce external modernity. Indians, however, uh, did not like it. They thought that they were being subjected, they were being oppressed. Subjection means oppression here. Okay. And once it was introduced, it led to India's underdevelopment. So 2 is the answer here. Perfect, perfect. Tej, Samiksha, Ezra, absolutely perfect. Okay. Let's see. I think this is the last question from this passage. Which of the following observations is a valid conclusion to draw from the author's statement that the logical structure of endogenous change does not apply here? Here, transformation agendas attack as an external force. Yes. What do you think is the interpretation of this? Endogenous is something that's happening from the inside. Endo, inside, genus, birth, happening from the inside. Let's see what you say. The author mentions this when the author talks about modernity, how modernity changed the Indian society. What do you say? See, this can be very easily rejected. Endogamous and endogenous are different things. In fact, I'm not even sure if endogamous is a word, because gamy is related to marriage. So marrying inside, I don't know what that means. Endogamous, no. Then colonized societies cannot be changed through logic. You can't change them through logic. You have to transform them with external force. No, the author never makes such an argument. So between 1 and 4. Okay, 4, 2. That's what I've got. And I've also, 3 has been eliminated. Now 3 has been retracted. Between 1 and 4, 4 is the answer. The transformation of Indian society did not happen organically, did not happen naturally. It was rather forced by colonial agendas. उन्होंने force करा ना modernity हम पर. यही तो बोल रहा है passage, right? So our change, the change that happened in our society was not something that rose from inside. It wasn't an endogenous change. Rather, it was attacked by the Britishers. In a way, the change was forced by them. So 4 is the answer. First, the endogenous logic of colonialism can only bring change if it attacks and transforms external forces. No, it is not attacking external forces. Colonialism is bringing modernity, which itself is an external force. Okay, so ये तो बहुत ही distorted हो गया. Right? Make sense to you? Okay, fourth is the answer. Perfect, perfect, all of you, those who said four. And yes, this was indeed a tricky passage. I absolutely agree with you there, right? Uh, some of the questions could have been attempted. So, for instance, if I talk about uh, this question that was based on one sentence, for example. Okay, so specific questions, because this required your understanding of just one sentence, right? This could have been attempted in case you understood these words: eminence, marginality, etc., etc., right? Then this could have been attempted in case you just understood the broad ideas, the key ideas. So 23 could have been attempted. Okay, 24. Uh, Again, it's based on the interpretation of one sentence only, and in case you understood the discussion that was happening in the second slide, even the part of the discussion where this was mentioned. So in the exam, what you can do is go back to this sentence and read a couple of sentences above and a couple of sentences below. That will probably improve your understanding, and then probably you'll be able to mark, right? All in all, a difficult RC passage. Now, Bacha, this is for CAT primarily. Okay, we are discussing CAT 2019 slot 2. Okay, and I'll be discussing some para summary, para jumble questions now. So, in case you want to attend for the para jumbles, you can, right? Primarily, this is targeted towards CAT. Okay, so para summary. Yes, here we have a paragraph, and you have to summarize it for me. You have to basically tell me which is the best summary out there. Okay. Uh, Let me give you the meaning of this word, although in the exam you will not get it, but it means a distinctive feature. Autapomorphy, distinctive feature. All right. Ezra, actually, yes, once you understand it, no, and you relate it to what you studied in history, you realize, acha, हाँ, ये तो हुआ था, ऐसा था, right? You get it. But initially, when you read it, the words are such, the language is such that it appears to be tricky. Okay. So, yes, read it and let me know which is the best summary out of it. What do you say? Okay, no one has marked, no one has said anything till now. बहुत सन्नाटा है ये तो. Okay, let's see. Language is an autapomorphy found only in our lineage, in our ancestry. By our, probably we mean human beings, right? Let's see if that is the case. And not shared with other branches of our group, such as primates. Yes, we mean human beings. That, you know, language is a distinctive feature that we find to be present in human beings only. It's not shared with other primates. A chimpanzee does not have a language, so to say. We also have no definitive evidence that any species other than Homo sapiens ever had language. हमारे पास कोई evidence भी नहीं है that any species other than Homo sapiens ever had something called language. However, it must be noted straight away that language is not a monolithic entity. It's not this one big thing, right? One uniform thing. Language is not something that's one single uniform thing, but rather it's a complex bundle of traits that must have evolved over a significant time frame, right? Language is also a bundle of traits. So, in fact, if you talk about it, language, so whatever I speak to you, it is aided by so many other things, my facial expressions, my tone, my pitch. So it's a complex bundle of traits that must have evolved over a significant period of time. Moreover, language crucially draws on aspects of cognition, mental understanding, that are long established in the primate lineage. So, even in the primates, you will see that there are certain aspects of understanding that probably evolved. Okay, they probably evolved over time and then led to what we today know as language in human beings. Right? For example, memory. So, our memory is responsible for a lot of what we say, isn't it? So, we remember words. If we were not able to remember words at all, how will language be produced, right? So, uh, so therefore, there are the different aspects of mental understanding that are present in the primate lineage on which language builds upon. The language faculty as a whole comprises more than just the uniquely linguistic features. So it's not just about what we speak, it's not just about the linguistic features. There are other mental features also that are involved. This is what the paragraph said. Now let's eliminate. Language, a derived trait found only in humans, has evolved over time and involves memory. Okay. So looks like a strong candidate. Okay, so I'll not eliminate this right away. However, it feels that it has missed out on something crucial. That uh, it's something that that builds upon various aspects of cognition, various aspects of mental understanding. It just talks about memory. Memory has been given only as an example. Instead of writing it involves memory, it should have written that it is built upon various aspects of cognition. So that's the problem with one. Let's see two. Language is a distinctively human feature as there is no evidence of the existence of language in any other species. So this is capturing just this part. It is capturing just the first two sentences. It is incomplete because we are saying कि ठीक है or it's there. We don't have an evidence of the existence of language in any other species, but language involves many aspects of cognition that are there in other species as well, right? 3. Language evolved with linguistic features building on features of cognition such as memory. See this. So, we are talking about the evolution of language, how it has built upon aspects of cognition. Yes, it evolved with linguistic features, right? It has linguistic features. Building on features of cognition, that is also given. And example is that of memory. So, 3 is a very strong candidate. Let's have a look at 4. Language is not a single uniform entity, but the end result of a long and complex process of linguistic evolution. I have a problem with this. The evolution has not just been linguistic. Linguistic means related to language or the spoken parts of a language, the structure of a language. The evolution it has been as much cognitive also as it has been linguistic. So that is why 3 is our answer. It evolved with linguistic features. Linguistic features बाद में आए. Evolution, linguistic evolution नहीं था. Right? Building on features of cognition such as memory. Does this make sense to you? Yes. It's okay to give wrong answers. You don't need to retract them at all. Right? No negative marking here in the classroom, isn't it? So 3 is the answer. Hope this is clear to everybody. Why not D? Why not 4? A long and complex process of linguistic evolution is wrong. Okay, the evolution wasn't linguistic in nature. Okay, that's okay. That's fine. Let's look at another summary. Okay, this is easier. Okay, it's topical also. Just eliminate. Probably you'll be able to find the right answer. Yes, let's read together. I mean, uh, should I actually explain it to you or do you want to give it a shot yourself? Okay, you read it first. So Bharat, I agree with you that that summary was not the ideal summary, but that's the whole point. If the examiner gives you a perfect summary out there, no, it will be very easy to identify the answer. That's why it says most appropriate summary, or what best captures the essence out of the given options, right? So you might feel that, I can write a better summary than this. That might happen in the exam, but you just have to eliminate and find the best out of the lot. Okay, I think I'm coming in the way of some text here. Let me just change the frame a little. So, understood? Hybrid organizations or hybrid identities here means you've seen this, no, that certain NGOs, they are completely devoted to just one issue, whereas there are certain other NGOs that are more broad, that are more general in nature. So they will talk about child welfare also, they'll talk about women welfare also, right? They'll be concerned with environment also. So it's a more general sort of an organization. So we are talking about such organizations when we call them organizations with hybrid identities, right? Those that span the boundaries of two or more social movements issues, right? So Bharat says four. Yes, absolutely correct. Four is the answer here. Okay. See, what it is trying to tell us is that when you want to have more and more people in demonstrations, let's say when you're protesting about an issue, you want to have a good number of people, right? So those organizations that actually deal with multiple issues, which have hybrid identities, they are able to gather more number of people. They are able to attract people with diverse viewpoints. That's what it is saying. Okay. See, social movement organizations often struggle. Social movement organizations means those that are focused on just one issue. They struggle to mobilize supporters from other movements in their efforts to achieve critical mass, a critical number. Okay. Whereas organizations with hybrid identities, they actually occupy more central positions in inter-organizational contact networks. That means unka network is much bigger and they occupy a very good influential position in those networks. And thus they recruit significantly more participants in demonstrations than do non-hybrid organizations. So they are able to mobilize, they are able to gather support from people with diverse points of view. So that's why 4 is the answer. Make sense? Yes. So it gives us, this is an example, this post studies of the post 9/11 US. This shows us that how people who were not associated with anti-war movements later on joined hybrid organizations, right? So yeah, they preferred hybrid organizations to these social movement organizations. So I hope this is clear. I think once you understand the RC passage, once you understand the paragraph, it's not very difficult to know why 4 is the answer, right? Um, this is an example. So one is not the answer because this just discusses the example, right? This again, the anti-war, non-anti-war is an example, not the main point of the passage of the paragraph, right? 3 is just the first sentence of the entire paragraph. It doesn't talk about organizations with hybrid identities at all. Okay. Coming to the third question. Okay. So after this, we are done with para summary. So that will be a relief. Yes. Let's read this. I am also reading in my mind. You also read it. So Bharat, in 1 year, I saw a parasummary question, but it was pretty easy. Okay. Uh, in 1 year, I saw a crux of the argument question, right? So that was also more like a summary only, but they were very easy questions, right? Regularly, I haven't seen parasummary questions. All right, Azra, bye bye. So, what do you say? So, what we are saying is that, open plan offices where there are no walls in offices, these open plan offices, they and cubicles, they were invented by architects and designers who thought that to break down the social walls that divide people, you had to break down the real walls too. That's why they were invented. But then companies actually, adopted this idea because they want to pack in as many workers in a room as they could, right? So uh, that's why they started looking like an assembly line, a white collar assembly line. These open plan offices. Cubicles were interior designers' attempt to put some soul back in. Cubicles are not, of course, walled offices. You understand what a cubicle is. So they are saying that then cubicles actually they're sort of a midway between, let's say, walls and open plan offices. Open plan offices made the entire workspace look like an assembly line. So then cubicles actually were their attempts to put some soul back in, at least, right? So let's see, two maybe, okay. Wall-free office spaces did not quite work out the way their utopian inventors intended. Okay, utopian means ideal. So in an ideal world, there would be no social divide, right? So that's why they have been called utopian inventors. So they did not quite work out the way they were intended. Yes, they were rather used for packing as many workers as an employer could. So they became tools for exploitation of labor. Yes. So two is the answer here. Although when you read it, no, in the first go, two does not look like the answer because exploitation of labor appears to be a little extreme. Utopian inventors appears to be a little extreme. But when you eliminate, this is the best choice. First is this is incorrect. See, wall-free office spaces did not quite work out as desired, and therefore cubicles came into being. No, we are saying that both wall-free offices, open plan offices, and cubicles, they were both invented by architects and designers who wanted to break down these walls. So it wasn't like when wall-free spaces did not work out, then cubicles were invented. It hasn't worked like that in my paragraph. Three, wall-free spaces could have worked out. We don't know what could have happened, right? Had companies cared for worker satisfaction? We don't know. This is a hypothetical scenario. This is not discussed in my paragraph. Fourth, they did not quite work out as companies don't believe in democratic ideology. Don't believe is extreme. We are saying less out of democratic ideology, less out of a democratic ideology than a desire. So they believe probably a little less in it. I can't say that they don't believe in it. Okay. Also, this is distorted. This does not give a sense of the exploitation of labor as has been given by option 2. So second is the answer here. ठीक है, good Bharat. All right. So good. This was a difficult question actually. When this came in the exam, we were all wondering, why two has been extended as the answer because these are extreme words. But then when you compare it with the other options, this is what is left. So not a very well framed. The options are not very well framed. That's what I would say, right? Okay, so done with para summary. Let's attempt sequence para jumbles, right? Odd sentence or para jumbles, I think we already covered. I'll see if we are left with some. So you have to give me the sequence of these four sentences. Okay, decide on the proper sequence and then key in the sequence of the four numbers as your answer in the chat box right now. Okay, let's see what you say. Okay, what do you say? We're just left with these sequence parajumbles now. So if I look at 2, it talks about men's time, women's time, clock time, caring time. And if you look at the other sentences here, let me just show you. So women's time is mentioned here, clock time is mentioned here, caring time seems to be mentioned here, caring time. Okay, and we are talking about a masculine artifact. Okay, so basically the male aspect, the men's time aspect in 4. So probably 2 is a conclusion of sorts, right? Because it talks about all these 4 types of time. So either it's the introductory sentence or it is a conclusion, right? So while dichotomies means when two things are opposite, we divide them into 2. So while dichotomies of men's time, women's time, clock time and caring time can be analytically useful, this article argues that everyday caring practices incorporate a multiplicity of times and both men and women can engage in these multiple times. Okay, this is what it says. So if my other sentences are defining what women's time is, what men's time is, they'll come before this. एंड देन आई से कि ठीक है वैसे एनालिटिकली तो ये सब डेफिनेशन सही है बट एक्चुअल में जो जब कैरिंग टाइम की बात आती है सो इट इन्वॉल्व्स अ मल्टीप्लिसिटी ऑफ टाइम्स अ ब्लेंड ऑफ ऑल दीस टाइप्स ऑफ टाइम्स राइट ओके सो here it says clock time has been consistently represented in feminist literature as a masculine artifact representative of a time is money perspective. So clock time has been given a male characteristic somehow because clock time takes the viewpoint ki time is money. So it's associated with men somehow because money is associated with men. Conceptualization of women's time as contrary to clock time, and women's time is considered as contrary to clock time, and clock time as synonymous with economic rationalism are two of the dangerous results, harmful results, deleterious results of this representation. Which representation? The one that I've just talked about in 4. So 4 should come before 1, definitely. Right? 4 should come before 1. Now, when the everyday practices of, so I first defined how clock time has been represented and how women's time has been represented. Right? Now, let's talk about caring time. When the everyday practices of working soul fathers and working soul mothers are carefully examined to explore conceptualizations of gendered time. So, conceptualizations of women's time. Okay, conceptualizations of gendered time. It is found that caring time is often more focused on clock than generally theorized. So, generally, because caring time is associated with women's time, it is thought to be less associated with the clock. So now it is found that caring time is often more focused on the clock than generally theorized. And then towards the end, we'll say while all of these differences, women's time, men's time, clock time, caring time, they are analytically useful. Actual में जब caring किसी की involved होती है, actual in reality when you care for someone, when you are a caregiver, that is what I mean, then it involves multiplicity of times, clock, men's, women's, and even caring. So this is going to be the sequence here 4, 1, 3, 2. All right. Hope this is clear to everybody. 2 serves as a sort of a conclusion by saying ठीक है अब हमने इनके meanings तो देख लिए पर actual में blend होता है. ठीक है. All right. Now, so 4, 1, 3, 2 is the sequence. Coming to the next question. Let's see. So this was, I would not call it a very easy question, but it's moderate. It's not difficult also. It's moderate in nature. Right? Coming to this one. Yes. We have certain terms here like cognitive economy. Cognitive economy is minimizing your mental effort. Minimizing mental effort. That is cognitive economy. Okay. Equivalent considered to be equal. Let's see what you think here for this one. So what do you say? I think it's easy to identify that 2 and 4 is a pair. 2 and 4 form a pair because we are saying adaptive behavior. When the way we adapt in this world, it depends on cognitive economy, minimizing mental effort, treating objects as equivalent, treating them as equal in some sense. To categorize an object means, now I'm explaining what do I mean by treating object as equivalent. It means to consider it equivalent to other things in that category. Okay, and different along some salient dimensions from things that are not. Right. So, for example, if I say, for instance, mobile is a category, isn't it? So now there are different types of mobiles. They share some similarity, right? That is why I have categorized them into one category. So adaptive behavior depends on minimizing mental effort, treating objects as equivalent. What do I mean by treating them as equivalent? That they are similar in some sense and they're different from other categories in some sense, right? So 2, 4. Then 3 and 1. How? Because now I tell you that whatever information, how are we able to categorize this? ठीक है, हम categorize तो कर रहे हैं, पर हम कैसे कर पा रहे हैं? Because the information that we receive from our senses, from the world, it has structure and order. It is not arbitrary. So this information has structure and order. Even living things such as animals and plants, they exhibit structure. They exhibit correlational structure. All the plants, they share some structure, share some qualities. All the animals, they share some qualities. So this has been presented as an example. Okay, so first we talk about how a person's behavior to adapt in this world is dependent upon minimizing mental effort. How is that mental effort minimized? By treating objects as equivalent. What do I mean by treating them equivalent? I explain that. Then I say that all the information that we receive. So how is this made possible? Because every information that we receive from this world, from our senses, it has order. Even living things exhibit structure and order. So 2, 4, 3, 1. That is going to be the order here. This is a tricky question. I'll not even call it moderate. This is difficult. Okay. So in such questions, when you encounter such questions, just by spending a few seconds on it, you can realize that okay, this seems to be slightly tricky. Or by looking at the language, cognitive economy, let's say, when you realize that, you focus first on the easier ones. So if I were you and I had the previous question and this question, I would focus first on this question. Okay. Let's see what the answer for this one should be. Atonal would mean without tone, without a tone. To the uninitiated listener, atonal music can sound like chaotic random noise. Okay, because it does not have any tone. So, atonality is a condition of music in which the constructs of the music do not live within the confines of a particular key signature, scale or mode. Basically, हम rules नहीं follow कर रहे हैं कि ये इसी scale पे होना चाहिए. Okay, those rules are not being followed. So, we are defining atonality here. Okay. After you realize the amount of knowledge, skill, and technical expertise required to compose or perform it, your tune may change, so to speak. Basically, you might change your opinion. You might change your opinion. That's what this means. It's a metaphor, idiomatic way of saying it. Change your opinion. So basically, initially it may sound like chaotic random noise, but later on you might change your opinion. So 1 should come before 3. That much I know. I'm not saying that it's a pair. I'm saying 1 should come before 3. Then, okay, so I've got some responses also. 2, 4, 1, 3 I have got. All right. So, however, atonality is one of the most important movements in 20th century music. The moment I have however, that's like a lease of life, right? It's contradicting something. What will it contradict? The opinion that it's chaotic noise? You'll contradict by saying, no, no, it's one of the most important movements in 20th century. Okay. So, to the uninitiated listener, it may sound like chaotic random noise. However, it is one of the most important movements in 20th century music. After you realize the amount of skill, knowledge that has gone into it, you may change your opinion about it. So, 2, 1, 4, 3. That is the sequence here. You were quite near. Those who said 2, 4, 1, 3, pretty near, but it was 2, 1, 4, 3. Okay. We first defined what atonality is, then we say किसी किसी को तो noise लग सकता है, but वो important है, and in fact once you also realize how much effort it requires, you might change your opinion. ठीक है? Hope this is clear. If anything is not clear, just ask me. Any questions so far that we've done? I think this is the last question for the day. Let me just check. So if anything is not clear so far, please feel free to ask. And let's attempt this question. Last one for the day. No, Bharat, it's not essential. Uh, so it depends on the structure of writing, the writing style. Okay, there are two types of writing style. There are more also, but I'm defining them broadly. Deductive and inductive. In deductive, we first define something, then give examples. In inductive, we first give a series of examples, and through that, ultimately, we define something. Right? So, here the structure was such that the definite the definition, not definitive, the definition needed to come first. Structure ही ऐसा था कि atonality क्या होती है, किसी किसी को वो random noise लग सकती है, but actually में वो important है, and you also might change your opinion later. So, you will talk about someone's viewpoint on atonality only after defining what it is in the first place. So, here it required to come first. It was required that it come first. Okay. All right. 3, 2, 4, 1. That's what some of you say. Let's see what others say. What else? Just one student. What are the others doing? Yes. Okay, I'll give you a hint. Just one minor tweak is required in the current sequence that has been given. 3 is the opening sentence. You are right. Historically, the notion of a balance of nature is part observational, part metaphysical, and not scientific in any way. Okay. Now see, 4, 2 is a pair, not 2, 4. When I say these parts, which parts? Which parts? The component parts. It's component parts. Okay. So it's 3, 4, 2, 1. 3, 4, 2, 1. Historically, this notion is not scientific in any way. Okay. It is actually an example of an ancient belief system which thinks that okay, nature ki bhi apni ek destiny hai, which is associated with its component parts. These parts, they all fit together into an integrated, well-ordered system. And then one will come, because we are talking about the harmony of nature when we say that they fit together in an integrated, well-ordered system. So 3, 4, 2, 1. All right. So this was our parajumble. This was easy. This was not difficult. This was easy. Even the atonality one was pretty doable. So if I were you in the exam, I would focus more on these two, right? Okay, and I hope all of you are aware about the All India Open Mock. I just told you about it in the beginning of the session, repeating it that it will be live till tomorrow. Okay, and you will get a mock attempt, you'll get question wise video solutions also. So, I mean, it's a win win for you, right? So, attempt it, it will be live only till tomorrow. You have the weekend with you, utilize it. Okay, and this is our CAT 22 comprehensive program. It's targeted towards all your MBA entrance exams with a lot of material, and for more details you can contact our counselors, right? I hope you enjoyed the session. I hope you understood new things. I understand that the questions today were difficult, but this was the level that you faced in the exam, and it's important that you are aware of it, right? We can stay connected via Telegram, and you can follow us on our social media handles. Of course, you've already subscribed to our channel. All right, so I'll see you next Saturday then with another uh, I think CAT 2019 slot. No, we'll discuss some other paper. Okay. I'll also get to know about it in the coming week. Right? Okay, then. Bye bye. See you tomorrow. Sorry. See you on Tuesday now. Tuesday at 12 p.m. Okay. Bye.